Hello, my name is Mary Norton, and I'm here today with Marion Coleman, a longtime resident of Bartow County and the past curator of the Noble Hill Wheeler Memorial Center. The date is April the 1st, 2017, and Marion is going to spend some time this afternoon sharing some memories of her family and her involvement with Noble Hill. Thank you, Marion, for being a part of our oral history project today.
Thank you.
And I am excited about doing this interview.
All right.
Yeah, I am.
All right.
Why don't we start by having you talk about where you were born and some of your early childhood years. Also, did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes. I was born here in Cassville. I was born to Mr. Lucius Wheeler Sr., and my mom was Ella Bell Gaynor Wheeler. And we, together, they had 12 children.
12 children?
12 children. I am the eldest of 12 brothers and sisters. I'm the eldest girl. I had one brother that was older than me, and he was 4 years older than I was. And we grew up together here in Cassville. I went to school here at Noble Hill, and even my parents went to school here at Noble Hill. I went here from 1952 until 1955, and then we went over to Bartow Elementary School because it was first built then. And I went there from 1955 and graduated from the 8th grade in 1964. After that, we were bused. The 8th graders, when we graduated, believe it or not, we graduated from the 8th grade. We marched down the aisle and got our certificate. From the 8th grade, we were bused to Summer Hill High School in Cartersville.
Okay.
From the 9th grade to the 12th grade.
What'd your mom and dad do?
My dad was a cement finisher after he retired from, well, he didn't retire, but after he finished the service. He was in the Navy. And he came home and he worked for the Harris Cement Product Company. And the Harris Cement Product Company was owned by Mr. Frank Harris Sr. And his son was Joe Frank Harris.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Jr., who was our governor at one time. And he worked there until he retired. My mom, she worked in homes during my early years, but she later on worked at the Union Carbide textile mill.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How has, you said you had 11 brothers and sisters. How has your relationship with your sisters and brothers changed over the years?
Well, not really. We hadn't really changed. We were a very close-knit family, and we still are.
You still are?
Even though we all have separated and have our own lives and our own families, we still get together on holidays and to check in.
All of you?
All of us get together on holidays because we're not that far apart. Most of us are still here in the Bartow County. And we get together during birthdays, holidays, and Christmas, different things like that.
How big a group is that then? I assume if you've got children and then grandchildren, so.
I would say sometimes with add-ons, we'll have about 50 people.
50, so it's a big group.
Yes.
Very large group.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about your parents, can you talk about some of the lessons your parents taught you that helped you be so successful in life? Like what sort of work ethic or expectations did they have?
Well,
they
loved their jobs that they had because they started off low and they built themselves up, but they wanted us to do better. They wanted us to have a better life and do better. So they were real strong on us getting our education. And that started with me and my brother. We were the oldest, so we were to set the example for the rest of the family.
And you felt that very strongly then?
Yes,
You knew. All right. Other than your family, who were some of the most important people in your life when you were growing up?
When I was growing up, I would say because we grew up in the church, we had to go to church and we had to go to school. Those two things were put out there first. So at home, it would be my parents, and then at church it would be Mrs. Minnie Ruth O'Hara. She was one. And she helped me even here at Noble Hill.
Did she?
She did. She volunteered and helped me a lot of days at Noble Hill.
Was she a teacher?
Yes, she was. She was an educator, along with Dr. Susie Wheeler.
Okay. So you knew Susie that
Yes,
long
we
ago.
went to church together. Yes,
Okay, I
I
didn't.
was a child growing up at New Hope Baptist Church.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So Susie and Dr. Wheeler, and then
Minnie O'Hara.
O'Hara.
Well, she was Minnie Smith then. Minnie Ruth Smith.
All
Right
right.
there.
You've talked about where you went to school, and you've also talked about how important education was to your family. How did you end up, talk about your college days, how you ended up graduating from Summerhill and then moving to college. How did that whole experience take place?
Okay. When I was in high school and I was graduating, my brother graduated before I did, and when I graduated, they wanted him to go to school. He had a scholarship to go to college for football, and he told them he couldn't go because he had to work to help me go to school. But they told him if my grades were good enough that they could offer me a scholarship also. So that's how I got to go to school, because they wanted him to go to play football, so they let me go.
And the age difference between the two of you?
4 years.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so where'd you end up going to college?
I went to Morris Brown College. He started at Morris Brown, but he didn't complete it. But he still started before I did, and then I went later on when I graduated.
How were your parents involved in that whole college selection process?
Well, in going, since he didn't complete his, that meant that I had to start paying my tuition. So my parents worked, and the money came from their checks, really their paychecks. My dad's paycheck would be there for me when I went to sign up to go to start school.
So they had 10 children at home, they were working, and they came up with the tuition.
Between my parents and my grandparents, they came up with my tuition.
So it was a family.
So it was we had a pay by month plan where they would pay so much a month until they got it finished. But that was the way it was.
Oh.
So that's how I got to go.
What was your major in college? What did you decide?
Elementary education.
Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
Did you always teach after you graduated?
Yeah, I taught for about 10 years after I graduated. I started in Atlanta in the Ben Hill area teaching. I taught there a while before I got married, and then I moved back home after I got married.
Okay.
And I taught here a while.
Where'd you meet your husband then? You just moved into my next question.
He was from Marietta. His uncle was a pastor of a church, and they would come up like once a month or twice a month, because we had a singing class, a note singing class. My grandparents and my mother and her sisters and brothers all sang notes, and they had a class.
I don't know what that means. Tell me, what he's singing.
When you sing the music
okay.
to the song instead of the words, but you would sing the notes first, and then you would go back and sing the chorus and the verses. But they taught us to sing notes, and his uncle was a note singer also. He was a note singer leader. So he came and he would come and we would practice together. And we met, our families met like that.
So both families knew him as well as his family knowing you?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what kind of support did he, what's his name? What was his
Harold
name? Harold?
Coleman. Mm-hmm.
What did your family think of Harold Coleman?
Oh, they were crazy about him because he sung.
That's right. He had good talent there,
Yeah,
that they appreciated.
Yes.
So you were working in the Atlanta area teaching elementary school?
Yes.
And then you both got married and then moved back to Cartersville?
Yes.
Okay. And talk about the kids you had.
We had 6 children.
6 children.
My first was a girl, and my last was a girl. In between were 4 boys.
In between.
Yes.
Are the kids still living in this area?
All but one. My middle son, he lives in Atlanta.
When you think back at your career, I mean, you went into elementary education. Was there another career you thought later on in life, I wished I had sort of thought about this?
I love sewing and I liked typing, but I never really got into, that type business, like being a secretary. I thought about those things, but I never really got into it. But I was pretty much satisfied with the
teaching?
teaching because I love dealing with the kids.
So what do you enjoy most about being a parent?
Watching my kids grow.
Watching them grow.
Watching them grow and trying to train them of some things that I grew up doing. I didn't want them to do. I wanted them to do better, so I wanted to try to train them a little better than the way I grew up.
Were those some of the challenges then?
Some of the challenges, yes.
Could you give us an example of a challenge that you felt very strongly about?
Yes, well, sometimes we would always draw back from different things. I wanted them to move forward and to be forceful and to go. Whatever their passion was, I wanted them to take it on and go for it and not draw back from it or be fearful. Because a lot of times I wouldn't do things because I was fearful of what might happen. You know, something might happen or go wrong, and so I might not try it. But I wanted them to really just, whatever their passion was, whatever they enjoyed doing, to take on that and go forward and just be happy. You know, I think if you do better on your job, if you do something you like. It's not work when you like doing it, and you will be comfortable doing it. And I wanted them to enjoy what they did.
What would be would you call that then the best piece of advice you ever gave your children?
It could have been.
Just
yes.
Go for it. Go with your passion.
Yes, go with your passion.
Were there other values or traditions that you have tried to pass down to your children in addition to do what you love?
Yes.
But what were other things that...
Well, since our parents were in church and we grew up in church, we got a lot of scriptures quoted to us when we were growing up. And the golden rule was one of them: doing unto others as you would have them to do unto you. Have respect for your parents, your elders, especially the elderly. And when you do something, to do your very best. If it's something you don't like doing it the best you can, until you get to something that you really enjoy doing. Even if you had a job that you didn't like doing, always give it your best, even though you're working on getting something that you really want to do. But just always doing your best and have respect for each other and for yourself.
When you and Trey Gaines and I had lunch last year, one of the things that you were talking about is the support that your sisters and brothers gave you when you were going to college. Can you talk about that for a few minutes and how you are trying to give back today?
Yes. When I was going to school, my dad's check and my mom and my grandparents helped to pay my tuition. And that meant that they would have to do without a whole lot of things. Clothes, we always wore hand-me-down clothes. And they really didn't argue or complain about it, because if I had something and passed it down to my next sister, she was happy to get it. And so a lot of things that they had to do without when I was going to school, to me, that put a burden on me to, try to some way pay them back, to show them that I appreciated what they did and the things they had to go through with so that I could go to school. So a lot of times I would, now that most of them are, ailing and sickly, I have to try to help take care of them and see after them and make sure that they're okay. And
that's a daily, did you tell me that's something, you have a routine every day of who you go see?
And that was even when I was back home working. When I came back home and started to work, I was always taking care of somebody, whoever was sick. At first it was my brother, he had to be dialyzed, and my mom got sick, she had a heart attack, my dad, different ones. And then each one that was sick, we would always, gather around and take care of. During holidays, we would always be at my mom's house for dinner. So that kind of put us together a lot of times. And so we usually would take turns doing different things for the family. And the family needed this, so we would work together and figure out how we would get it done.
And you see that in your children? I mean, that...
Yeah, especially my youngest one. My older ones, I'm not around them that much, but I can tell that they are considerate of others, yes.
Tell us about how you became involved with Noble Hill, because you were teaching, you were raising 6 kids. Here sits Noble Hill. It's a family tradition, so to speak. How did you get involved? with
Well,
this place?
I needed a job. I was helping my mom and my brother, and I needed a job to help my family to keep my kids in school and keep them going. So Dr. Wheeler, this job came open because the girl that was here she was going to teach. She had a teaching job. So she was leaving, and Dr. Wheeler needed someone they didn't want to close the doors, so she needed someone to be here during the time until they could find another curator. So I took it on. When I first came, I thought all that was involved would be telling about the Noble Hill Center and when I went to school here, and just telling about the history that I knew. But it was a whole lot involved in doing this job. But I took it on because Dr. Wheeler was here most of the time helping me out. She was showing me, she said, I would tell her I didn't have experience in this. I don't know how, she said, you'll learn as you go until we get somebody else.
So she was your mentor.
So she was my mentor when I was here, when I first came to work. And then the community, everybody that lived in this area, they would come by and check on me to find out, how I was doing and how I was getting along. But I learned so much from working here because I didn't know that much about African American history here in Bartow County. And I didn't even know that this was a Rosenwald funded school.
Why don't you, people may not know about Noble Hill. Will you take a few minutes and talk about the historical significance of this place? Because it's a wonderful story.
It is. It is a very important story for the African American community. It all started in Alabama with Booker T. Washington and Mr. Julius Rosenwald. Mr. Julius Rosenwald was the president during that time of Sears and Roebuck. And he was also on the board at the Tuskegee. And he was usually giving money to Mr. Booker T. Washington for the school to help do things that he was planning to do. And one time on his 50th birthday, he asked him if he could use some of the money that he had donated. He donated this for his birthday. He had donated money to Mr. Booker T. Washington for him. And it was his birthday, but he gave the money to him. But he asked him, since he had money left over, could he use it to build small schools in Alabama for the elementary kids? So they did. And it went so well, he decided that they would do it in all the southern states.
My goodness.
And Noble Hill was the very first Rosenwald-funded school to be built in Northwest Georgia. So this was the first building that was built to be a school. Because we had a school and church buildings and army barracks, lodge halls. And Justice Benham said a school started in his grandmama's kitchen.
Really?
Yes, that's what he tells that story a lot. And it was just different places wherever they could get to have school, have classes. But this was the first school that was built to be a school.
How did you get the land? How did that come to
The land? The parents, the people in the community had to work together to purchase the land because they had to have a place. That was one of the rules. They had to have the land. They had to have, I think it was at least an acre and a half of land to put the building on. And they had to have the county and the state school the boards had to work together. The county and the state. The city, all of these had to work together. That was part of the rule also. In order to get the matching grant from the Rosenwald Fund, they had to work together. And everybody had to come together in order to get the school.
And it lasted from how long to how long it started?
It was built in 1923 and it lasted up until 1955.
So you have a lot of alums from
Yes.
who have moved on.
Yes.
My goodness. What kind of services do you or what kind of services in addition to the school, were there other services that you provided to the community?
From Noble Hill, yes, it can be used as a meeting place. We have family reunions that come. We also have, during the Labor Day picnic, we have a Labor Day homecoming celebration where we invite all the Noble Hill alumni and their families. It's open to the public, but we ask them to come back and be with us on that day.
How successful has that been? What do you?
So far, it's been increasing from the
Really?
beginning. Yes, it has.
How many people came last year?
Last year we had about 80, 85 people. I mean, that were connected to the alumni of this school.
Okay.
So it was, and that's not including the visitors from the outside.
So it's a growing then.
Yes, it's growing. It's
Very
been growing.
much.
Yes.
What changes have you observed over the years with students and visitors who visit this unique museum?
It's surprising about the kids when they come. They come back again and they remember and they bring their kids.
Oh, really?
I've had summer heritage programs where some of the kids in this community would come and participate. Now they're grown and they still come back and bring their kids. So it's really exciting to see.
So multi-generations then come back.
Coming back to, and most of the visitors that have ever visited, they usually pass it on to others, and they come back and they tell us about someone in their family came to visit, so they wanted to come and see. So they had to be kind of excited about it when they came to visit to tell someone else about it.
What do you think is your most important contribution to Noble Hill?
Well, the only thing I can think of would be that Noble Hill is my history, and it's also my family history, because the chief contractor of the school was my great-granddad.
Oh.
So it's part of my family history, and it's part of Bartow County history. Yes.
Now, you're here, you said earlier, Dr. Wheeler is here, then you're here, and then Dr. Wheeler phases out, and then you...
Yes.
So you found your voice.
So I had
and
to
tell the stories.
Yes, but she taught me a lot, and then there were others that came. It was so many that came. I can't really, tell what everybody done. It was a community effort, because they knew I was here, and they would come by. And each one that would come would leave me with, if they didn't bring artifacts or different things I could use, they would tell me a story that I could use to, share with somebody else. So it helped me out a lot.
It's a wonderful community story. When you decided to retire, talk about some of the ways that you are still supporting this museum as a volunteer.
As a volunteer, I volunteered to be on the board, the Noble Hill Wheeler Foundation Board. And that means that I get to help to make the decisions and plans for what we're going to do. And I also get to come and help Joy out in whatever things that she needs me to help her with.
So you recruited Joy?
So it was kind of like Dr. Wheeler doing me. She was always here, and I want to be here for Joy, for anything that I can help her with. Yeah.
What could you talk about some of the future major challenges facing Noble Hill that you would like individuals watching this oral history to be aware of, and how to give their support?
The main challenge we have now is a dream that Dr. Wheeler had, to make this into a Noble Hill village. That was her dream. And that meant that we would have a library here, we would have a lodge hall, we would have a storage building, we would have old country store, a craft shop where people could come and even teach craft lessons. Older people that used to do quilting or different crafts that they would do, to teach younger people about these crafts. And a place to display these crafts, and a garden, different things that she wanted to be here on this. And that meant that we would have to acquire some more land. And we've been given an opportunity to acquire the land around us. And we need this land so that we can pull these different buildings up here and open up this. It's going to take I would say a long drawn out time, but it depends on how the money comes in. Yeah. We're going to have contributions, grants, and different things like that to keep it going. But we're saying to work on it one phase at a time. And
how many acres are you trying to purchase?
I'm not sure about the acreage at this time, but I know it's all the land that's around this building that you see close to around this building. I'm not sure about the correct acreage.
How much money does that translate into?
Right now, we're looking at 60,000.
60,000?
Yes,
And where
but-
are you in your goal?
But that's 60,000 plus, because
Okay.
we're going to have money to do the renovation and everything else that goes with it. So we really need more than that, but that's just to acquire the land.
Now, did you tell me that each board member took on a financial commitment?
Well, we was trying to help each board member to raise $1,000.
$1,000? Because I think you sponsored a
Yeah, I had a fish fry.
fish fry.
Yeah, fish dinner.
Was it last month?
Yeah. So
But it looked like there were other people here.
Yeah, there were a lot of people coming to help me to raise my $1,000.
So then you end up helping somebody else in return.
Yes.
What is the best piece of advice you were ever given and the best piece of advice you've ever passed along yourself? We may have touched on this a little bit, but just in terms of thinking back over your being involved in it with elementary school, with Noble Hill, what words of wisdom sort of stand out in your mind?
Well, I know always do your best. That was the main thing. And to treat others the way you want to be treated. And the main thing was to go for whatever your passion is, to go for it and to give it 100%, whatever you're planning to do with your life, and stick to it.
What would I be surprised to learn about you? You've talked about so many things about your family, but is there anything that you said, I bet Mary doesn't know?
Well, I didn't know if you knew that the builder of the school was my great
I
granddad.
absolutely did not know that.
That was one that I thought of. And then this was part of the ones that helped to finance, helped to build, and a lot of the Wheeler family was involved in the first building of the school and in maintaining the Noble Hill Center after it was built. So that was mostly my family that was involved in it.
Does that then fit into your legacy in terms of what legacy do you hope
Yes.
you want to be remembered?
Yes.
In terms of
what we did as from handed down from one generation to the next. Now, I feel like it was my time now, since they had worked in the past, and it just came on down to me. So whatever I can do to keep it going.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
Okay.
You can't be. Because we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yes.
Well, I just want to thank you, Marion, for taking the time to share your history and insight growing up in Bartow County, as well as the historical significance of Noble Hill Wheeler Memorial Center. On behalf of the Etowah Valley Historical Society, we very much appreciate your providing this interview today. Thank you. And if someone is interested in supporting the Noble Hill Land Purchasing Project, please forward your donation to the Noble Hill Wheeler Memorial Foundation, Post Office Box 67 in Cassville, Georgia, 30123. Or you can contact Joy Hill at 770-382-3392.